Today, I'm leading the show with a conversation with a former chairman of the Human Rights Commission, who is a professor of law. I'd like to welcome back to Inside Sources again, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Prof, Happy New Year to you.
Same from here. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026. I hope it has some constructive testimonies for us all and for our country.
Hopefully. I can say amen to that, Prof. So let's start with, Mr. Trump has now intervened, in a rather much more critical way in Venezuela. And we are told that the president and his wife of Venezuela have been taken away, probably heading for some court appearance or proceedings in New York. How do you respond to that? And should we be worried in Nigeria at all?
No, thank you once again, and to the viewers as well. Happy New Year. It's customary at this time of the year. Now, history has a way of repeating itself. If you remember, we're speaking at the beginning of 2026, in January 2026. And pretty much exactly 36 years ago, on the 3rd of January, 1990, the United States under President Bush ran a similar operation in Panama, where they, on this day, on that particular day, 3rd of January, took President Manuel Noriega on accusations that are absolutely a reprise of what you have now. The allegations against President Maduro are exactly the same thing, the same playbook that occurred in December 1989 into January 1990. Allegations of narco trafficking, allegations of massive election rigging and denying the will of the people, allegations of racketeering. And Manuel Noriega was taken to Miami, if you remember. He was put on trial in Miami, convicted, sentenced, I believe, to 40 years in prison, if I'm not mistaken. He served until, I believe, 2010, when he was transferred, by which time he had become ill. He was transferred to France, where he continued his time in detention and then taking medical assistance for what ultimately proved to be colon cancer. And he died back, he was repatriated from France back to prison in Panama, where he died in 2017. I know that you asked a supplementary question: should Nigeria be, or the leadership of Nigeria be watching its back? Look, I'm not American, I'm Nigerian. And my primary responsibilities are as a Nigerian citizen. Now, under the Constitution, Section 14, the primary responsibility of government is the protection of its citizens, of public safety and security. I'll give President Tinubu credit. As a politician, he's peerless. The political dimensions of the presidency, he does not have any equal at all. But as a commander-in-chief, he is missing in action. He has been totally absent as commander-in-chief. And that is the biggest problem with his presidency. I'm not going to be worrying about what America can do when even my own president is unwilling or unable to exercise the responsibilities of the office. And right now, sadly, speaking only as a Nigerian citizen, I've got to say that Nigeria's current president is appears unwilling and unable to exercise the responsibilities of the office.
So let's start with, the wishes of the president in his message for all of us. He didn't give a broadcast. We didn't see him behind the camera speak to us, but he did release a statement. But I want to ask you, how do you assess his statement? What are the key things that you want to bring out?
President Tinubu is not just the president of Nigeria. He's also an African elder. You know, when you're over 70, which he is, he's an African elder. And, you know, in Nigeria, we talk about Dirty December. Even young people now want to return to the country to do their holiday season at the end of the year and commune with the people and all of that. I'm loath to spend too much time on President Tinubu's New Year message because it takes a derailed African elder to go and spend Christmas outside the country, outside their place with foreigners. Mm. President Tinubu was not in Nigeria for the New Year, right? Now, amidst all of the challenges...
Sorry, Prof. I think he spent Christmas in Lagos, and it was from Lagos that he left for Europe for the New Year.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. President Tinubu was not in Nigeria for the New Year.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, which African elder properly brought up actually wants to go and spend New Year outside their place with their own people? And when you are the president, and you are trying to tell your people that you're doing these phantasmagoric reforms and things are turning out right. And then on the eve of New Year, as New Year approaches, you take off and flee the country. Missiles are raining on your territory from outside the country, and you say you invited a foreign president to administer the missiles on the territory. And that you provided the intelligence, or at least that's what his appointees are saying, that Nigeria provided the intelligence that Nigeria could not act upon to the United States so that the United States could do these things. What prevents him, therefore, from spending the New Year in the country? And what was it? What is it that is so exciting in Europe that his reforms cannot persuade him to at least spend New Year's Day in Nigeria before going out of the country? So that's why I'm not particularly of the mindset to dwell too much on what he said rather than what he's done. And let's be clear. In the midst of the US missile strikes in Nigeria, President Tinubu has said absolutely nothing as commander-in-chief. Ministry of Defense has said absolutely nothing. Defense headquarters has not shown up. So who are the people articulating? The foreign minister, the Minister of Information, and Daniel Bwala. They are the people who are saying things about this situation. If people are not troubled by that, and if that is not eloquent New Year's message, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Prof, I'm going to agree with you on that. The fact that you have the US president, first of all, he was the one that told us about this attack. You know, I could let that slide, you know, because I personally think that the people who are victims don't care where the help comes. I understand the contradictions and our failure, but those people need some succor. If the U.S. intervention will bring it, fine. But what I find worrying, personally, Prof, is that our president has not spoken at all.
Thank you.
He didn't make a broadcast, you know, and I'm told that he didn't make a broadcast also last year. And then he has left the country, you know, about the same time without saying a word. And then Anthony Joshua got involved in an accident. And then the president made a call to Anthony Joshua and put it out to us. Now, I mean, I'm not saying the president shouldn't call Anthony Joshua. Of course, he should. But how come we are hearing from our president about Anthony Joshua and he's not telling us a thing personally about the fact that we have America sending bombs to our territory? No word, no explanation, no accountability. What is responsible for that, in your opinion, Prof?
If I give the answer that I'd like to give, you know, people may get excited, but I think it is fundamentally because Tinubu does not need Nigerian votes to be president.
Wow, but he does need it. He must get it.
No, he does not need Nigerian votes to be president. Tinubu needs judges and INEC to give him a result. If you need votes of your people to be president, he will not be, with profound respect, acting with this degree of irresponsibility and utter disregard for the worth and well-being of Nigerians. No. It is because at the end of the day, let us all be honest. What he needs are the judges and INEC. If votes counted, Nigerian politicians would not be as irresponsible, from the president down, will not be as irresponsible as they are to behave as if Nigerians do not count. Because for good or for ill, and I agree with you, people, I've spent most of my life working on atrocities and insecurity across the world, and particularly across the African continent. And when you look at the situation, Sudan, in Darfur, for instance, or indeed in the north of Ethiopia, in Tigray, in Sierra Leone, Liberia, where we had the situation in West Africa, in the last decade of the last millennium, the fact is people who are in trouble, or indeed in the Great Lakes of Africa, right? People who find themselves at the receiving end of a challenging situation do not mind where help comes from. I totally agree. But when that help involves something on the scale of a missile strike on your territory, you do expect that your president will be responsible enough to face his people and say, this is what transpired. And that, to not do that, to not think he owes Nigerians that, and to then leave the country. And while all of that is taking place, what happens? They issue a statement on a $1 billion financing arrangement for the so-called coastal road. They found time to do that. They found time to attend AO in Lagos. They found time to commiserate with Anthony Joshua publicly, but the president has not said anything about the situation. That, for me, is the most eloquent, as I said, of New Year statements and New Year messages. It says the man does not think Nigerians matter.
It's quite worrying. Now, because I have had experience inside the villa as a presidential spokesperson, I know that there are times that you might have a principal, who listens to his aides. Even if the principal doesn't listen, the aides around him hold him a responsibility to talk to him. And I have had occasion to call out, the people around the president, that is it a problem of just the president, or the fact that you guys, I'm talking of those aides, that you can't talk to him? Because I don't know, for instance, how you will have, 3 presidential spokespersons in the villa, and we have no kind of explanation whatsoever. To what extent do you think, Prof, that we should hold the advisors to account? To what extent, if at all?
No, I don't hold any advisors to account on this at all. As you well know from your experience in the presidency is a lot of jobs in one, right? A president is a party leader, he's a head of government, he's the head of state, he's a diplomat in chief, and so many other things. A president is also commander in chief. Now, a president, pretty much every other aspect of the presidency can be delegated. There is only one part of one job in the presidency that cannot be delegated: commander in chief. As long as the commander-in-chief is alive, no matter in what state, no other person can do that job. Therefore, the advisors can all do what advisors do. And as President Obasanjo let us know, what they are is advisor. He does not have a duty to take their advice. And in order to protect the relationship between an advisor and the principal, what the advisor says remains confidential. So we will never know whether, as a matter of fact, the advisors actually told him anything, because it's important to respect that relationship of advisor and principal. However, what the principal does, in my view, is what is important. And here, even if the advisors did not tell him, are you telling me that the president does not realize that he has a duty to communicate to Nigerians, just as the US president communicated to Americans and indeed the world his own version of what transpired? The president of Nigeria, where the missile strike occurred at the receiving end of missile strike, had a duty to tell Nigerians this is what is transpiring. And he's failed to do that. He's not reckoned with that. And it seems to, and that is the fundamental, most important duty of the commander-in-chief. He has absolutely abdicated that responsibility, in my view, and there is no excuse. There's no justification. It's irresponsible.
Wow. Interesting. So, final question. The tax reform bills has been in quite a bit of controversy. Representative Abdulsamad Dasuki from Sokoto in the House of Reps pointed to the whole nation that he has gotten a copy of the gazetted law, the gazetted version of the legislation that is different, from the proper copies that he said was sent to the president, and obviously the one that the president signed. And then, since then, the National Assembly leadership has said, okay, don't worry, we've sorted it out. We are going to do another gazetting. How do you respond to this, Prof?
Well, I mean, I find the courage and honesty of Honorable Abdulsamad, by the way, is very commendable. I think there are few legislators in Nigeria who would have had the courage to do what he did, particularly in this current era where everybody is jumping to the ruling party. So that's the first thing here. It's quite evident. I don't, the fact that the leadership of the National Assembly is talking about regazetting clearly shows that he was right in what he said. And the fact that nobody has made the effort to suggest that he should be sanctioned means that he definitely was right. And that is a problem. Now, people need to understand the process of legislation, okay? Now, after the National Assembly passes a piece of legislation, and whether or not there is need for concurrence, but once a bill sails through the National Assembly, it is transmitted to the president with what is called votes and proceedings, which shows how the National Assembly actually took the decision.
Right.
So it's not just a clean bill that is sent. The clerk, the CNA, certifies the text with votes and proceedings, which then goes to the president and for his assent. Now, what is suggested here is that after votes and proceedings had gone to the president, the text was changed. If the text was changed, there is nothing like regazetting. Not at all. Now, the Gazette, by the way, enjoys a presumption of regularity. And so anything published as legislation in an official gazette of Nigeria, is the text of the law. If you cannot even believe the text of your gazette as a country, what can you believe? All right? So whatever is published in the gazette is the text of the law. If the National Assembly wants to change that, what they need to do is convene us in a session and set it aside. They can repeal it and then replace it with the right text, if that is what they want to do. And they can repeal it and send up the proper text to the president for him to assent afresh, and then it gets published in the Gazette. But you cannot have two gazettes. One representing one piece of legislation, another one purporting to set the earlier Gazette aside administratively, and then replace it with a new one. That no country runs that way, not even banana republics. And I'd like to hope that Nigeria is not setting itself up as a banana republic. And so, I've heard what is it called, the chair of the Presidential Task Force on this tax fiscal reforms, Taiwo, right? Going about and saying all of these things. My problem is, what is Taiwo's brief? Is it perpetual? Is it endless? Is it infinite? Because I thought that his brief was to deliver a report and proposals to the president, but quite clearly he's become something more than that. And he appears to be doing work, in my view, that should be done by the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, or a chief economic advisor to the president, in which case they should just appoint him as that, or maybe a chief tax advisor or fiscal advisor to the president. Let them move him into that position and give him a brief. But this plenipotentiary capacity to basically take over any portfolio in government and run it as he appears to be doing is part of an architecture of lawlessness that appears to pervade what the current government administration is doing.
Well, what he says in his defense, and just to give the flip side, is that the president has asked him to continue in that advisory role regarding fiscal reform. So that it's not just to work in the preparatory stage of the committee trying to draft the reform, but also to be active in its implementation. I think he has said that publicly.
Exactly. And that means exactly what? Is he an official advisor in government?
Well, yeah.
Or is he outside government? And what portfolio does he exercise within government? The president asks people to do things all the time. That's not a problem. And the president has friends as well, and he's entitled to have his friends. But what he is doing, in my view, is unlawful. It's unprecedented. He basically has a Rambo role, foraging across government, saying whatever he wants, doing whatever he wants. It is power without responsibility. And that is not, particularly on fiscal policy. You cannot be running fiscal policy as a free agent. Surely not. And that is what pervades this entire thing, free agency, or free radical, as a matter of fact, that you just come in and this dude, is bright. I'm not contesting his nous on the subject matter or his expertise, but that's not the issue. He's just running amok, in my view.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Thank you for your views. Thank you for the courage of your voice. And thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you for having me, sir, and have a fantastic 2026.
All right. Same to you.